Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on our first Wednesday Zoom with the principal. We used to originally do them on Wednesdays back a couple years ago before we went to distance learning. Over distance learning, we switched it to Thursdays. And then I have actually a lot of conflicts on Thursdays this coming up this semester. So I thought, let's just switch it back because, and then I don't have to worry about that. But thank you guys all for coming. We do actually have a topic to cover today, which is finding your spark, which is always a great topic to talk about in January with New Year's resolutions and just kind of a new year and starting fresh type of vibe about it. Though Yvonne and I were talking this morning, we imagine that you probably also have a lot of COVID questions. And so I certainly will take time to answer those. So any questions that you have, please go ahead and put them in the chat and we will absolutely address those. Let me just say, as we get started, hopefully it goes without saying that if a student has tested positive, they need to stay home. They need to not come to school. And you do need to notify us. We do have some staff members out, so we're a little bit, not a little bit, we're very much backed up in the attendance office. So I would ask that you just go ahead for absences to go ahead and email me. Because I've been going through them. I've been doing attendance myself this week. So if you go ahead and email me, I will put it into, I'll clear their attendance. So just want to put that out there first. All right, Yvonne, why don't we go ahead and start talking about finding our spark?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Finding your spark is something that I picked up along the way in my journey of being an intern. I worked for the YMCA, and this was kind of one of their big things about finding your spark and what does that mean and what is that? And when I think of a spark, I think of something that we're passionate about. And a lot of times people, they think their passion has to also be their career. That's not always true. For me, I'm very fortunate in that my passion is my career. So I want to talk a little bit about passion. And when I look back about the things in my life that I've been passionate about, it's always been people. I always liked talking to new people. I always befriended kind of the underdog. My parents said I was really chatty. My husband says I'm really nosy. My kids say it's kind of annoying, and it's, my husband will be in the grocery store and I'm talking to some woman and, wishing her well in her divorce. And my husband's like, how do you know her? And I'm like, I don't. And he's like, that's really weird that you would be talking about that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I just like to know what makes people tick, how they're feeling, what inspires them. Like for me, that just is something that's always been part of who I am and part of my personality. So for me, I've always found people to be my spark. So my job is meeting new people. I probably meet new kids every day. And, this is something that I really want to help my kids identify. Like for me, I want everyone to know, I want to know everything about everybody. I want to know what makes them tick. I want to know what makes them feel alive, what's happened in their past that's impacted them. I want to know what their goals are, what they feel. And some people think that's strange. Like I think of my husband's job and I'm like, that sounds really boring. When I tell him about my job, he's like, that sounds really terrifying. But for me, it's just kind of like what I do and what I love. So where do our passions come from? Passion is an energy. It's this feeling that you have when you're really engaged in something that you love. I think it's unfortunate. A lot of people, I know for me, when I first started having a family, I didn't really have time to explore the things for myself that I was passionate about. I was always so wrapped up in like taking care of children. And just like I'm sure everybody else is, it's like you're busy, we're cooking dinner, we're doing laundry, we're getting our kids off to school. And there's not really a whole lot of time to pause and think about the things that inspire us. Like that's not something that we do every day. It also could be like a feeling of something that you would do for free. So when I'm talking to teenagers and I'm asking them what their spark is, one of the questions I'll ask them is, if I told you that I was going to call you at 5 o'clock in the morning so that we can go do something, what would get you to bounce out of bed really quickly? And so for me, it'd be like hanging out with my friends. If I knew they were all going out at 5 a.m, I would probably do that, right? So like for you, Jenny, like what would get you out of bed? I know your bike gets you out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning every morning, right?
It got me out at 3 o'clock in the morning this morning because it's an
What?
early week. So when you have to be at work at before 7, you get up very, very early.
That's wild. But yeah, that's your passion.
It
What else?
really has become just something that I like. It's like my time.
Mhm.
It's time that I just really cherish. And yeah, it's something that I like have become pretty passionate about.
Yeah. So I like to take time to just think about yourself when you were a teenager. And what was it at that time that drove you? What was it that made you feel inspired or excited? Like for me, it was obviously people, but it was also like sports. I played all sports in high school. I loved it. That was like my thing. It was what motivated me to do well in school so I could stay on the teams. Um, and then I think about like who inspired my spark, who supported my spark. And I have this very fond memory of my dad showed up for every single game. Even in the beginning of my sports career when I wasn't that good, my dad was always there on the sideline. And that was something that was really important to me because he knew how much it meant to me. And he would, leave work and come and spend the afternoon with our teams. And for me, that was like, he knew that I'd probably never like be a professional athlete, but he knew in that moment in time, like how important that is for me. So for everybody here, like, what was it for you when you were younger? And also, is that still your passion now? Because passions evolve and change. So for you, Jenny, what was it when you were younger? What were you passionate about? What was happening for you?
When I was 15, oh my God. My friends.
Yeah.
I was, passionate about my friendships. I mean, I think that's pretty typical of teenagers, but like my relationships were really important to me.
Mhm. Yep. What about you, Kayla?
I was trying to think as well. Like, I think friendships were the number one. Like, I remember like sleeping and I would wake up at like the drop of a pin. Just if my friends were like knocking on my window or something, I would drop everything for them. But I think, like you said, too, sports. So the physical activity was really important to me. And I think most of that was actually community rather than exercise. But
Oh, that's true. And you still do that, right?
and I still do that. Like all through quarantine, I would wake up at 4:30 to see a sunrise hike. And
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the ways to kind of figure out, because maybe for some people you don't really know, like maybe there's nothing that stands out in your mind. Like people will say like, well, I'm passionate about my family and I'm passionate about my kids, which I am as well. As my kids are starting to get older and one of them has moved out of the house, it really has me reflecting on like, what am I going to do when they're not here? When I'm not like at their beck and call, like what is my life going to look like? And what things am I drawn to that are going to like satisfy my own needs, right? Like, what am I going to do when I don't have kids? And for me, that's travel, hanging out with friends, getting outside and, getting fresh air, being out in nature. Like, those are things for me. So, the following 7 questions are going to assist you just in case you don't know what your passions are, or maybe you just don't know how to articulate them. So, I want you just to kind of like think to yourself, or if you want to throw it in the chat too, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. And the first question is, what do I most often give to others? Is it time? Is it energy? Is it baked goods? Is it good conversation? Do you make people laugh? Like for you, what do you most often give to other people? So that's the first question of this. So, for me, just reflecting on that, I would say maybe like listening, or if somebody's like down, I'm usually the person that will try to like send them something or cheer them up or make them laugh or something like that. So for you, what is that? What do you most often give to others? The second, oh, I love that. Time, energy, and support. Anyone else? What is it that you give to others? It could be to your kids. It could be to your community. It could be to your other family members, friends. What is it that you give to them? The second question is, what do I have the most fun doing? And hopefully we're not like a lot of my students, when I ask them what they do for fun, they look at me like they don't understand what I'm saying. Because I know there's not a lot of free time to have fun. And I know that's for us as adults too. Like, what do we do to have fun? Let's see, even the hard question for me, like, what am I doing to have fun? Hanging out with friends. I like, this is kind of silly, but I like to play cornhole. I like to watch Jeopardy. I think that's fun. That's something that my family and I do every single night since like forever. So that's fun for us. I like seeing new places. What about you guys? What do you have the most fun doing?
I like to read.
Yeah.
Go traveling. Yeah.
Yeah, Virginia traveling.
I think if I'm having like a harder day, I'll put on music at my house and like dance and just like use the whole space. And sometimes even if I'll like even record myself. And so later, like if I'm having like another harder day, I'll watch it and I'll like be so happy. I'm like, look how happy I was there.
Oh my, I kind of want to see that video. I think that would make me happy.
These are private videos.
I love
That's the joy because I record them knowing no one would see them.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know,
I love it. And it's really something that we don't think about often. Like, what am I going to do for fun today? It's more like you wake up with your to-do list of like, I need to do this. What else do I need to do? I need to get groceries. Like, you know, let's see, what does Virginia say? I can't. Driving somewhere. So traveling doesn't have to be the longest distance, but to a different destination. I love that. And that's also, which we'll talk about a little later, a really great way to help kids find passions, is seeing new things, experiencing new cultures, new destinations, new sites. So the first question was, what do I most often give to others? The second question was, what do I have the most fun doing? Again, like if we can spend any time just thinking about what can be fun, I think it could be really helpful for us because like I said, it's not something that's on the top of our to-do list. So maybe we should move it there, right? We have responsibilities, but we also have responsibility to ourselves to do things that make us happy. The third question is, this is kind of an interesting one, is what do others look to me for? And that might be different to then what do we most often give to others, right? It might be, what do others look to me for? A voice. Maybe it's advice. Maybe it's, this is gonna sound silly, but I feel like sometimes my friends look to me for like laughter. Like when we go out and have fun, like can be silly or whatever. So I would say like support, I'd say laughter. It's really interesting to think about. Like you think about, okay, who is usually looking to me for something? Like at work, people are looking to me to help them through a problem, right? But then at home, they're looking to me to feed them, right? And also to support them, right? Or to drive them somewhere. But I think all of these are like supportive.
I was about to say, like, I think for me, it's probably mostly advice, like definitely through work, you know, questions I get are a lot of advice type questions, but also at home too, except for my son. I think he is looking for me to just make him mac and cheese.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what he wants. He's 12. He has simple needs. He wants some mac and cheese.
That sounds like my youngest, like probably looking for me to feed him and then looking for me to leave him alone so he can play video games.
Money, specifically $20 bills. Yeah.
That would be my husband. The kids are looking to him for 20s, not for dinner. So what do I most often give others? What do I have the most fun doing? What do others look to me for? And then these are all going to kind of tie together to hopefully help us kind of find out what our passion is. But the fourth one is, it's kind of hard to talk about ourselves in a positive way sometimes. I know I ask kids like, what do you bring to the table? Like, what are your strengths? And it's kind of uncomfortable for people, but what are you most complimented on? When's the last time we received a compliment? And when we did receive it, how did we accept it?
I was told by a staff member a couple of months ago, it was before the break, so that I'm very organized and efficient. And I was like, yes, I am.
Yes, you are. Virginia, going above and beyond to help out. I definitely could have guessed that about you, Virginia. For sure. It's so much easier to talk about and compliment other people than to acknowledge what people say about us, right? Like for me, Kayla Marshall is my other social worker here, and she's like a really clear like voice of reason, and really good at that, right? I know, because I'm kind of all over the place, and organization is not my strength, and it's probably hers. It's one of hers. So what is it that you want?
I think as I was thinking about the original question, like who is giving us the compliment, where it's coming from, because I would never consider myself organized ever. And I think my closest people might say you're the most disorganized, Kayla. But in different circles, we might provide different things to different people.
Right. Or maybe compared to me, you're really organized. Kidding. Yeah, so what is it that people compliment us on? I don't know that we get. Does anybody get compliments from their kids? I'm trying to think. I don't know. Not me.
I made the mac and cheese the other day rather than my husband. And so my son told my husband that I was the better parent. So that was nice. That was a nice moment.
That's like the gauge. That's it.
Oh, Rupert says his kids like his shoes. That's nice.
Rupert's got good shoes. Yep.
Driving skills, I like that.
I get more compliments from my daughter, who is older. So, and that's definitely like, as she's gotten older, she's does that more, as opposed to when she was like 12, 13, 14. Yeah, she was very in her own world.
Yeah. And maybe from kids, it doesn't come so much as a direct compliment. Like I kind of feel bad because mine will come from like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're not like so-and-so's mom who blah, 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 right? So I don't know if I could consider that a compliment to me or an insult to somebody else, but they'll like maybe notice when they see something happening in another family of like, oh, I'm glad that we don't do it like that. But normally I don't think they acknowledge like what I do. I think they just maybe have come to expect that I do it. So
I will say that when we've had dinner, this is pre-COVID, but dinner at like other people's houses, my kids would be like, oh mom, you're cooking so much better. And I'd be like, thanks. Appreciate it.
Right. Ours was like, mom, they knew 10 people were coming over and they didn't really cook very much. I'm like, yeah, I know how to host people. What does Virginia say? My kids always say I'm the better parent because I do everything, but they don't know the hit I take for doing everything and always showing that I'm okay. It's a bittersweet compliment. Yeah. Yep. It like a lot of things that we do are overlooked, or people don't acknowledge the sacrifices that we make, right? Like the sacrifice sometimes is sleep or time for myself or the ability to go and do something fun for myself. Doesn't really happen. The next question is, what do I do where I lose all track of time?
Look at my phone.
Yeah.
So you know how like on Sundays you get the phone report, where it tells you how much. So last week over break, it's like your like screen time is up 25%. And I don't even want to tell you guys how much time it was, but it was insane. And so I like was like to my husband, I'm like, that's crazy. Like, am I just like, this is like I'm on my phone all day? And he's like, yeah. Apparently I get sucked up on like the Facebook videos and like watching people decorate cookies. Seriously.
Total time suck. But yeah, you get lost doing that. I'm trying to think, what do I get lost track? Watching like crime documentaries. Literally, it'll be like 5 or 6 hours later. I'm like, what have I done? And who's fed the children? Like, what is going on? So for me, it's that either that or like conversation with people. I'm like, oh my God, we were talking for an hour and I was supposed to like cook dinner. Oops. So for me, it's like engaging with people or watching something related to like psychology or crime or, just TV shows like that. So for me, that's what I get lost doing. Anyone else?
I like that. Hanging out with my friends is usually like, oh, the sun's setting. We started at 8 a.m. and now we gotta go home or something.
I love it. Yep. Okay, we have 2 more questions. What do the people closest to me say my passions are? So are our sparks obvious to others? Is it something that we carry to ourselves? What would people say about you? What would they say are your passions? The people closest to you. So close friends, family.
I think my family would definitely say reading, because I spend like all my quiet time. I'm like reading a book. Probably cooking. Lately, I mean, for the past year or so, they would definitely say working out because my family makes fun of me all the time about it. Yeah. I don't know though what people at work would necessarily say, because I don't feel like I share that much about what I actually spend my time doing with just casual acquaintances.
Yeah. That's a good question. Like, I know what you do, but I don't know that everybody else would know that.
Yeah.
People for me would probably say, gosh, I don't know. I don't know what they would say. I know what I would hope they would say, but I don't know that that's what it is. Maybe spending time with friends, maybe my family. Yeah. So it's interesting to think about, like, what do I think they are versus what am I like projecting out into the world? What are people noticing about me? What do they think? I mean, I hope something positive. Anyone else? What do the people closest to you say that your passions are? Maybe that's something we don't really talk about. That's not something where I'm like, hey, Ginny, I really feel like you're passionate about your bike. Oh, maybe I do say that, but
yeah, but and like I don't know, but it's an interesting thing because like that maybe that's something that I talk about, but I wouldn't necessarily for me be like Prius. I like it. I wouldn't necessarily say it's something I'm passionate about. It's something I do and I enjoy, but I don't know, like I'm going to share a little bit about myself right now with this group of lovely people. One thing that I've always wanted to do, and this kind of ties into finding your spark, but one thing I'm passionate about and I've always wanted to do is I've always wanted to write and like be a writer. And so I actually, with the new year, I was like, over the break, I'm like, I'm going to give myself a Christmas present. And I've signed up for this continuing education class on creative writing. And so like that's something I'm passionate about, but it's not something I talk about ever.
I love it. Yeah. That's true. Like maybe it's like what people see us doing most is confused with what they actually think we're passionate about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like the question in the comments, like, is passion and enjoyment the same? Because I think about the things I'm passionate about, and even when I don't enjoy them, I still want to do them. I think, for me, being passionate about people, like one of my favorite jobs school social worker was a cashier at a grocery store, which is not, a lot of people's probably worst nightmares, like talking to people all day, every day.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it all the time. And, I don't think we can like anything all the time, but you still want to go back.
It's true. I think of enjoyment as like, I enjoy getting my nails done, but I'm not really passionate about it. I don't think it has to be the same thing. I enjoy massages too. I'm not really passionate about them, but yeah, I think for me, passion is, I think about, I was kind of a late bloomer, so I didn't go to college until I was like in my 30s. And one of the things that really inspired me is I went back to school and I had 3 little kids, and it was very difficult. But because I was so passionate about the work that I knew I was going to do, it didn't feel that way. Like, it was so easy for me to just kind of breeze through the program because I loved all the information I was getting. So for me, that was like, I felt really passionate about it. And I think that's why I wasn't able to finish school when I was younger, because I had no goal. It was just like, I was supposed to just show up in college. Right. And I think that's a fear for a lot of our kids of like, I feel like I'm supposed to have it all together. I feel like I'm supposed to know what I'm going to do. But until like, I feel like it could be difficult to have to work through all those difficult steps. There's a lot of classes to take. That's a lot of time and energy to do something where you're not even sure what direction it's taking you in. Right. So for me, it was like passion was psychology and people and helping people. And that helped me kind of propel through school which I felt was not easy, but it didn't feel like torture because I liked it. Right. The classes that I didn't like cultural anthropology, felt like torture. But I only did it because I knew it was part of the program. Right. So again, what do people closest to me say my passions are? And I like that. Like, what am I demonstrating to others that make them think that that is my passion? Right. Like, I would be worried that people be like, oh, she likes to shop and get her nails done. Like, there's so much more that, like you said, Jenny, we don't talk about, so maybe putting our passions out more. Like, now that I know that you write, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. No wonder we get along. I love that. I would love to take a creative writing class. Like one of my hopes is to write a book one day. Like, that's, something I didn't know about you. So what do people closest to me say my passions are? And the last thing is, what ideas, things, places, or people am I most inspired by? So think about people who've inspired you, people you maybe watched on TV, or people you've run into or met, or maybe people that are in your family or your friendships. Like, who are they? Or what are they? And what inspires you? What inspires you about them? Like, who are those people? I don't think I have like a hero, if you will. Who it's kind of cheesy, but I always loved, and this is like growing up in the like 90s, I always loved watching Oprah because I felt like she was truly engaged in every guest that she had on the show. And she like would study up about them and have some information for like the dialogue. Like, I felt like she really was committed to like engaging somebody in that conversation and asking really hard questions and just going there. And that's kind of how I work in my practice of like, I don't like to beat around the bush. I like to like ask really direct questions. And I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I just thought of that right now. So she was somebody for me that I guess I watched growing up, and I thought that was really cool that people trusted her to like share all of their secrets. So I just realized that right now. So anybody else, what ideas, things, places, and people am I most inspired by?
I get really inspired when I meet people who are like, they take care of everything they need to take care of in their life, their family, themselves, but then they also make so much time for their own passions and for just personal growth. I had a teacher in 7th grade, and she was like, maybe she was in her 60s, she was single, and every summer she would go just hike around Spain, and that was her thing. And she had a family to take care of, but they knew the drill. And so just seeing how much time she devoted to herself too. And each moment that I have with my friends where maybe they go through a breakup or they go through life circumstances, and then them coming into, I guess, a moment for themselves where they realize how much time they need to devote to themselves now. That is always really inspiring to me.
Yeah, I think for me, I've always looked at people who are in leadership roles and the way they communicate, either verbally or through the written word, and like being able to, communicate clearly. Like, I've always been like, oh, I really like the way they said that, or, how they, what words they used. This is very recent. Over the break, my husband like talked my daughter and I into watching Ted Lasso with him because it's his favorite show. And he was so happy that it was hilarious. He was so happy we were watching it with him. But it was a really good show. If you guys have not watched Ted Lasso, I highly recommend it. And actually that character is really inspiring to me. This week I've been thinking about it a lot with like, everything is just crazy right now. And you guys know, like, things are crazy right now. And I just like every morning I've been like giving myself a little mantra, like stay positive, and kind of that Ted Lasso, like keep upbeat, have a positive demeanor, and like, it's going to be okay. And just stay positive. It's going to be okay.
My husband's been begging me to watch that, so now I guess I have to.
It's really good. You will enjoy it. It's really, really good.
I love it. So putting all these things together, I know it was a long list of 7 questions, but I think they're all relevant because it kind of takes a look at everything from all kinds of different perspectives. What people see in us, what we feel, what we like, what we enjoy, what, you know, we lose track of time doing. So just a kind of quick run through again is, what do I most often give to others? Think about what you said. What do I have the most fun doing? What do others look for from me? What am I most complimented on? What do I do where I lose all track of time? What do the people closest to me say my passions are? And what ideas, things, people, places am I most inspired by? And realizing, like, looking at your answers, and are there any commonalities in these things that you notice? And I think that's a good way to kind of dig through if you aren't sure what your passion is. Like, what themes came up for you? What things popped up maybe multiple times over that list of 7 questions? And you know, I think mine is like helping. Like, I don't know, I've always felt like this like nagging like desire to like step up and like help somebody, whether it's something silly like, I don't know, helping somebody with a project, like painting their room or whatever. Like, I always want to be the one to like volunteer and help. And I like that, and it kind of fuels me. So I think for me, that's kind of what popped up. And then now you got me thinking about Oprah. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that I was inspired by her. It sounds so silly. So anyone notice any themes? Anybody that maybe didn't know what their passion is, start to kind of move in the direction of figuring that out. What is it for you that inspires you? Yeah. Any themes there, Jenny?
I think for me, and I just, with my like being inspired by good communicators, and then kind of going into like, this passion I have for writing. I mean, one thing that I've just been thinking about a lot more recently, and maybe because this school year has been so difficult, for the first time in my life, I've been starting to look like, oh, I'm going to retire at some point. Like, I'm not going to do this forever. Mm-hmm. And so kind of thinking about like, oh, what's the next phase, even though it's still a ways off, but 10, 15 years from now, I will be retiring, and like time goes by really fast. I mean, I think about when my daughter was like that was, 15 years ago, and it's flown by. So time goes by really fast. And so I was like, it's time to start thinking about that. And so that's really where this idea of like starting to write and like having that be something that I could do in my retirement is coming in. And so I think that, Kayla, you're younger, but like the rest of us that are like, good, solidly middle-aged, like it's like a nice thing to start thinking about, like, what is the next phase? Because, I don't want to be one of those older people that like is just bored at home. I want to have, my passions and interests.
When I think of like retirement, like what my thoughts used to be on it, like in my younger years, is like, I guess I'm going to do puzzles and knit, like, and garden maybe, like those aren't my things. That's always kind of what I thought. But now as it's like actually approaching, I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah. What do I want to do? Like, what do I want that to look like? So it's exciting and scary all in one, but we always start these talks with like ourselves because of the modeling that we do with our kids. Do our kids know our passions? Do our kids think that, I've heard kids say like, I don't want to be an adult, then I got to cook, grocery shop, go to work every day, come home and be grumpy, and it's like, is that what we're showing them? Is that what it looks like to age, right? I think aging is a gift, right? We're given. And if our kiddos are thinking that it looks like torture to be old, then that's, what we're we're modeling for them. So just some food for thought, the way that we put it out into the universe and put it out to our families of, do my kids think that my life is like miserable and they don't want to get to be my age? Or do they think that, you know, I take time to like have fun and do things? I don't know. Maybe I'll ask them. Maybe I'll ask them tonight. So
But I think it's a good thing. And I think that's, you know, kind of the point of this topic, not just to help ourselves, but to help our kids and to like have and to talk to our kids about our own passions. Because I know when I talked to my daughter about like, oh, I want to take this class because I want to start writing, like she was just like really excited about that. And like it was, I think to her, it was like, oh, I don't have to have everything figured out at 18. I can be at 47 and try something new. And that's okay. And so I think that that's a good thing to share with our kids, because I think right now with teenagers, there's just so much pressure on like, you have to have it all figured out. You have to know where you're going to go to school. You have to know what you want to do with your life. And that, you know, yeah, it's good to have a plan. We do want them to have a plan, but you can take an off-road. You can, you know, have like a side gig. You can do different things.
I love when a teenager sits in my office and I ask them about like what they want to do. And when I just let them know that like, you're not supposed to know yet, you don't have to know. And I can literally see their shoulders come down like, huh, what a thought. Like I don't have to be 14 and have my path figured out right now. That's one of those moments for me that's like really special, because it's like, yeah, you should be having fun. You should be doing all these things. Talking about parents and sparks in our children, it says there's a study that the Search Institute, which is the people that basically created this idea of what a spark is, they took a poll between 12 and 17-year-olds, and I think it was like 25% of parents knew what their kid's spark was when they guessed it, and their kid was like, yeah, most people, like 75% of the kids were like, no, that's not my spark. I don't know why you would think that. Like parents would say like video games, and the kids are like, no, actually I'm really interested in like travel. And the parents are like, what? I didn't know. So just maybe that would be a good kind of idea to do over the dinner table or whatever. It's just like explain what a spark is. I defined it in a way that I thought was really beautiful. It says, our spark is our very essence, the thing about us that is good and beautiful and useful to the world. So when you think about it from that perspective, if I'm thinking of my kid and I'm thinking, what is it about him that's good and beautiful and useful to the world? My instinct is to say like, oh, he just wants to play video games. But I think of my youngest because he's my video gamer, but there are things about him that are very tender and gentle and helpful. And he's my one that covers me with a blanket when I'm on the couch, or he had spending money when we went on a trip over the break and he bought me something special. Like that's something for me, it's like, that is what's like good and beautiful about him. And that's useful to the world because that makes you feel really good. So when you think about our kids, it's easy to think about what we see them doing all the time. But when we really think about those qualities of them that are good and beautiful, like what is that? Right? Because I know your kiddos kind of like mine, and that's what they do. But I know there's also those moments of like tender and sweet and what are they? And maybe that's where that spark is. Like, I don't know, just a thought. When youth know their spark and have several adults who support that spark, they are more likely to have a sense of purpose, be socially competent and physically healthy, volunteer to help others, and have higher grades in school and better attendance. I think with any of us, if we don't have direction or passion, things kind of fall flat. Things are not, we're not giving our all. So just thinking about helping our kids find their spark is going to be something that's going to benefit them in so many ways. I have this little list of, I'm not sharing my screen, but it's basically just a list of all the things that could possibly be your kiddo's passion. It could be nature, animal welfare, helping, serving, volunteering. It's difficult sometimes for our kiddos here to differentiate, like, what am I actually doing because I like it versus what am I doing to put on my college app, right? I'll ask kids like, oh, I see that you're volunteering. And they're like, yeah, that's right. And it's like, oh, it doesn't sound very exciting. Like, a lot of times it's missing that piece, that passion. Like, I'm doing this because I'm in helping animals or raising animals or whatever. Or, just community service just becomes like this like checkbox. So how can we pause and help them realize that like these things that we're doing should be something that really come from like within? What are those good and useful things that your kiddo has, and how are they expressing that? And are we giving them the space to do that? Maybe it's creative arts. Maybe it's their friendships. Maybe it's learning a new language. It was something that surprised me in our traveling over the last year. My son, who's the video gamer, I think I don't even know where we were, but he, all of a sudden out of nowhere, he's like, I think I'm going to move to Amsterdam and start studying language. And I was like, what? Like, it never would have occurred to me. And so part of our job as parents is to provide them with opportunity to like expand their minds. Like, that would have never occurred to me. I just, his thing was like, I'm not going to college. I think I shared this before. I'm starting a cat hotel. Why do you need to go to college to scoop cat poop? That's his thing. So to hear him kind of expand his mind into like, oh, I could learn a new language, and it's kind of exciting to be able to talk to somebody, and it shocked me. So I know our kids have little secrets inside of them that maybe they haven't expressed to us, but maybe we haven't given them the opportunity to. Maybe we've shut them down. I know I come home from work and I'm like exhausted, and the last thing I really want to do is engage in a long conversation, right? So just things to think about, for our kiddos. What is it that they love? How do we support that? The more supported they feel, the more they're going to kind of delve deeper into what that is. People who know a spark are less inclined to experience depression, engage in acts of violence, make risky choices. I met somebody in grad school, and he had shared with me that a lot of his former friends had ended up incarcerated. And I asked him, like, what was different? Like, for you, you grew up in the same neighborhood. What was it for you that changed the trajectory of your life? And he said, honestly, it was soccer. I loved my coach. He was so awesome. I wanted to impress him. I loved being around him. He was like the kindest person. And I showed up for practice every day because I didn't want to disappoint him. And I loved the sport. And I'm like, wow, like that could have been so different had somebody not shared their passion with you and helped you and encouraged you with your spark. So for me, sparks are not just something like cool for somebody to do, but can also keep us on kind of more of the straight and narrow. A lot of kids here want to do well in school. Maybe they're not inspired by college yet, but maybe they want to be on the football team, and they know that they can't be out on it without grades, right? So what is it for our kiddos? When our spark is expressed, we feel alive, we feel useful, life has purpose, we feel we are drawing on our best potential. I always tell people that I love my job. Like, literally, when I have to miss, like, I'm actually sad. And so for me, the transition from the school year to the summer is very difficult because I don't feel alive and useful. Like, it's like, it kind of like energizes me. Like, I thrive in the chaos of what happens during the school year, which is a lot of chaos over the last couple of years. And so I know for me that this is something that is really important to me because I can feel the energy, right? I can just feel like how important that is for me. So I think it's, when our sparks are expressed, we feel alive, we feel useful, we feel good, we feel like life has purpose. Even when things are tough, we're still, encouraged to keep going on. So I don't know, Jay, if you wanted to stop and take time for questions, or if you already answered them. I wasn't sure. I don't want to take up too much time.
Yeah, no, thank you. I answered the ones that were in the chat. If anybody has any more questions about anything, certainly feel free. With some of the big questions that came up were, does the school still offer the PCR testing weekly? And yes, we do. I had an email earlier today asking if it was for families too, and unfortunately not. So the PCR testing that we offer is for staff and students only. It's once a week. The company that comes and picks up the test, they pick it up at 9:30 on Wednesdays. We have the tests in the main office. Because the pickup is Wednesdays, the best time to do it, students can come in Wednesday morning. Actually, they can come and pick up the test anytime, and they could do it at home. And then just drop it off Wednesday morning if they want to do that. That's, we have staff members that do that. Or they could come like Tuesday afternoon, like after school, and do it just whenever's convenient. We do need, for students to test, we do need a permission slip on file. So they just have to bring that in once, has to be signed by the parent, and then we just have it on file. But I will email that out to parents again today. I had emailed it out in the beginning of the year, but people obviously are desperate for COVID tests right now. So I will email that out again. I'm hopeful that this is just a crazy wave that we have to get through right now. It seems like all the reports on the news, like they're saying that this is going to be really terrible but really fast. And so I'm hopeful by February things will calm down and it'll be okay. I will say, if your student does test positive and they have to be out for 10 days, and they do have to be out for 10 days, we are still, the district is still following the 10-day protocol, not the 5-day. But we have a lot of kids that are out right now. The teachers are going to be really flexible. Tiffany, and your question, so we gave out the rapid tests on Monday. Those, just so you know, because I've had students ask like, oh, so we're going to get those every week. No, that was a one-time thing. If you remember, I don't know how much people were paying attention to the news right at the beginning of our break. Gavin Newsom, our governor, said that, oh, they were going to test all students. And I was like, I remember being like, well, how are they going to do that? Well, how they did that is they sent these rapid tests to all the schools. Ideally, we would have done that before school started, but it just didn't work that way. They didn't arrive in the district until Sunday. And so we got them out on Monday. We did it as fast as we could. But Tiffany, the weekly test that we do, and we've done it for the past 2 years, is a PCR test. So that one, just so you guys know, with the PCR test, it's not like if you go to Kaiser or something like that, where you're going to get the results. How our testing works, if you test negative, you don't hear anything. If you test positive, they contact you. But so no news is good news on our weekly tests.
Jenny, how fast do those come out? Is that the same night you would hear back? Do you know?
Yeah, usually I think it depends on I'm anticipating that, because today's Wednesday, that there might be a lot of positives, because it's like a lot of people are testing positive. So it's either Wednesday night or Thursday morning. It depends on how somebody from the district contacts. And so it's depends on how long it takes them to get through the list.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, thank you guys for joining us. Our topic next week, when Yvonne was talking, I was like, what are we doing next week? I had to go and look it up because I couldn't remember. We are talking about social media next week, which is always a good topic, especially right now with TikTok trends that are really annoying. So social media is our topic for next week. Okay. But thank you guys. Stay safe, stay healthy. This is not the time to be going out and being around a lot of people. So do the best you can. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.